Beautiful.
You are beautiful. You're a beautiful man, Dusty Burrows.
Pretty sexy yourself.
Well, I try. Yay! Hey, we're back. We're back. It's Friday. It's the weekend. Time to get sober, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
Good
everybody.
day to get sober.
Right? Everybody, welcome to This Pink Cloud, Season 2, Episode 31. I am DJ Kelly Reverb. We are a show on recovery, sobriety, and all in between, and addiction, and relapse, and, just a little unique look at the lives of, active and post-active users.
Holistic healing.
Oh, holistic healing. There's a whole myriad. But sitting in with me, co-host, the lovely and talented, here, I've got a description for you. You ready, Dusty?
Great.
LPC, LCDC. Get the school stuff out of the way. I've got the possum wrangler, right? Sobar Basics purveyor, correct?
Yes.
And then I went ahead and threw in the Charlie Manson of recovery.
Oh, God. Stop that. My mom hates that.
I know. No, there's a picture of Dusty and then you put them up next to each other.
And they look alike.
And it goes deeper than that. He's actually got
We have
Charlie
the same
Manson.
birthday. But she loves you, but if you keep bringing that up, she might not like you anymore.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry,
Mom.
Mom.
I
But no,
him.
but it was like if Charles Manson was it turned out to be a good guy.
I don't know. I'm just kidding. I plead the fifth on that
And
one.
then, of course, the Zen master with the whole recovery Dharma thing. And my personal sky daddy, Dusty Burrows. How's it going, bud?
It's quite an introduction. Thank you,
hey,
Kelly.
you've got to live up to that hype.
Yeah, I'm working on it, man. It's a daily grind living
Right.
up to that introduction every so often.
Well, how is Recovery Dharma going, real quick?
It's going really good.
And that's
Every
Recovery
week.
Dharma North DFW, right?
Yes, North DFW. Myself and Stephanie Ann and Cassie, shout out.
Yep.
We've come together and done something really great, but it's really not so much about us. It's about the community.
Sure.
And every week people show up. We have new people every week just showing up, healing, and being vulnerable.
And you don't have to
spreading the word.
necessarily be in addiction recovery. You can just want some, inner peace, correct?
Well, yes, it's recovery from addiction, from chemical addiction, but also
Sure.
process addiction, or it can even be just behaviors that aren't serving you well, that are causing suffering not only to you, but maybe to the people around you. And whether
Right.
that be, and we have people going through divorce that are in there healing from that. So lots of different reasons for people to attend Recovery Dharma and heal.
See,
and
I
get
think you're
supported.
already living up to the Zen master part.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, and-
There's probably real Zen masters out there. Like, F that guy.
Yeah, right. Well, you've got the beard, dude. You've got the look.
Well, maybe one day.
We'll
I
just give it to
aspire
you.
one day to be.
Hey, look, you found some Zen
that
in your
healthy.
life, dude. So you're the master of your own Zen.
I
So
try every
there you
day to
go.
find a little bit.
Right?
There's a song about that. It's like, give me fucking Zen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
and that's me.
Hey,
every day.
Dusty's mom. Yeah, that was Dusty that cursed on the air. So anyway, but hey, I do not want to leave this lovely young lady out. Amanda Franklin is an LPC life coach, and get ready for this alphabet soup here, is what we call it. So LPC, CSTAT, master addiction therapist. Also, you have an involvement, a strong involvement with Al-Anon. And then also you have your own page on Facebook and Instagram, and it's called Recovery for the Rest of Us. First off, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be
By the
here.
way,
Yeah.
I'm just going to talk at you the whole
Okay.
time.
Okay.
But this is Amanda Franklin. I'm excited to have her on. We always talk about active addiction or what's happening in that community. We never really have on the show have addressed the families that addiction can affect. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that is what we're doing.
Such a huge piece.
Yeah,
And that's why I thought Amanda would be such a great guest. And she's my good friend, too, and a wonderful hiker.
Nice. Well, okay, so let's, I guess, before we talk about all your accreditations and all that good stuff and we get to your group, let's hear a little bit about your story and, you know, how I know you were kind of touching on how you had an interesting childhood, let's say, but let's kind of hear your backstory and then how you, you know, got involved with this.
I guess long story short, I grew up in a home of addiction.
Right.
And so in all the different ways
you can make the long story long, by the way.
You can make the long story long?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I grew up in a world where drugs were normal, and it was the business.
So it was the family business.
It was the family business.
All right. Okay.
And it's what we lived with. It's what we did.
Right.
I think kind of growing up, looking back at some of those things, you know, seeing them from a perspective and a lens of recovery, I look at them very differently than I did at the time.
Sure. Well, you were just a kid growing up.
You were just a kid, yeah. And also the reason why I get so passionate about family recovery is for the people that have grown up in addiction, who might not understand just how much they were impacted by another's sickness.
Sure.
And how much that changes us. So growing up in addiction, I was living on my own when I was 14.
Wow. Were you emancipated?
No, I wasn't emancipated, but I was on my own when I was 14.
Your own apartment? Everything?
No, I was playing house.
Oh, okay.
I was playing house.
Right.
And if you look at the dynamics, I think most of us would be able to agree that if you're in a world of addiction, sometimes it's a really dark world, and the boundaries are very blurry, and the lines get crossed all the time.
Sure.
And so, you know, I can look back and say that I was kind of thankful for that experience because it took me out of one hell, but it puts you kind of in another hell.
Right.
You don't understand those things necessarily. So, and I just kind of began my life at that age.
Right. Sure. Yeah, you kind of had to grow up before you were supposed to grow up.
I would absolutely say that.
Absolutely.
I'm also very stubborn and strong-willed.
Trial by drug trafficking.
Well, not necessarily drug trafficking, you know, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, I lived in that world for a long time and thought I was grown and lived a grown life and played. You know, I was definitely party girl.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, you know, talking about all those things. I feel so fortunate sometimes that as opposed to lots of people around me, when the party was over Sunday night, I could get up Monday.
Yeah.
As opposed to keep it going.
Right.
And what's amazing is 99% of the people that I lived in that space with in my life are no longer alive.
Wow.
Almost all of them have either committed suicide or died as a result of addiction. And I look at that stuff and I'm kind of just blown away by it. I mean, it's my everyday world now.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, you know, not only have you chosen it kind of as your vocation, but you know, it's, you know, you were just thrust into that. So it was like you were predestined or preordained. Yeah,
I feel like I needed all the experiences that I have to help me help others.
Right.
Because we do so much.
Well, I mean, no, but I mean, you definitely have I guess a good or great perspective because you know you had a front row seat of addiction your entire life, your upbringing, and all that kind of stuff. So.
It's always fascinating to me too when I work with clients and peers when they're young and at 13 and 14 and 15 cast into another world from an already adult world with the mind of a child having to process these adult concepts,
right.
You know, and it changes the way that the brain develops. It changes the trajectory of the way your brain develops and also the rest of your life, you know, and to understand that impact, like you said, is really profound.
Well, and I think that's a beautiful point because it took me until I got into this world to understand there's nothing wrong with me, right? That this is an absolute normal byproduct of the life that I had experienced.
Sure.
And I get very passionate about young people. My practice is full of young people because this is where we can make the most difference, right? And let them know that this is just the result of living in a world that's very distorted, right? Like the book even the big book talks about how distorted our worlds become. And the whole family is neurotic to a degree.
Now,
I would say to a big degree.
well,
You know?
you bring up the big book. So you are, you know, I mean, I don't know what the level of anonymity is as far as being in Al-Anon and going to meetings and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, you don't flame somebody's story. Oh, well, yeah, Mike Sotheby was talking about his son, and he's really an F-up. You know, I mean, I get that. But, I mean, you know, so in Al-Anon, why don't you explain what Al-Anon is for maybe those people out there that don't know it, or what type of resource it is?
So Al-Anon, as I say, it's the family side of recovery. It is. It was designed to be a side-by-side program for the family, for the family member who is in needing recovery from, at the time, a chemical substance. Today it can be processed sex, porn, whatever that is. As I did the program and my story, my version of it.
And I found that interesting that you actually worked the steps in
Al-Anon
as well. As well. So I found that interesting. I didn't even know. I thought you guys just sat around and talked about.
Well, I think there's all kinds of groups.
Sure.
In any program, right?
Right.
And so I was lucky enough to find a group that did the steps, that used the big book.
Okay.
It's not conference-approved literature, and
Right.
you find a bunch of rule followers,
Right.
and they're like, we can't read this book.
Right,
And
sure.
Thank God I found people that said, hey, we're rebellious. We're going to read the book.
We're going in.
Yeah. But, I mean, Al-Anon was the gateway for my life to change. So kind of going back to the growing up, you know, I spent years pretending to be something that I wasn't, hiding, masking the pain, not knowing what to do with it. When you live in a world of addiction and alcoholism, the people around you, my mom was a sick woman. I have so much compassion and understanding for what she experienced today, but she was a sick woman. Not only was she battling addiction, she's most definitely battling mental illness. And she had her own upbringing that she had to overcome too. And I'm really thankful that, you know, kind of as just the world evolves and progresses, we get more and more open, and there's more resources for conversations like this.
Sure.
Because I think about things like my parents didn't have access to information like this.
Right, yeah, and we were just talking before the show. I mean, the whole reason why, you know, this concept came up is because there's just so much information out there that I had no idea that there was this whole other existence. You know, but while I while I derailed yours, I do have to hit the sponsors real quick. If you need help, be sure and hit up Summer Sky. They're out in lovely Stephenville, Texas. That is summersky.us. And then their number is 888-857-8857. That's summersky.us, 888-857-8857. I went there. Working for me. I got a year and some change, and then like I said last week, and if it doesn't work for you, it's a very expensive trip to Stephenville, Texas.
Yes.
And then if you're looking for some long-term recovery, we just brought on these guys. Love my boy Josh and Ricky.
Shout out.
Yeah, Cardinal House Sober Living. They are now a sponsor of the show, and you can reach them at cardinalhouserecovery.com, and that number is 918-998-4223. Once again, that is 918-998-4223, and that's cardinalhouserecovery.com. And they're more of a long-term solution. You know, if you're out there and you go to rehab and then you can't do it on your own, you know, it's all about having some extended accountability as well as spiritual growth.
Absolutely. You know? And Josh doesn't skip leg day either.
That's right, dude.
I tried to duplicate our last workout, and I'm sore from it today.
But anyway, so, yeah, sorry for the interruption, but you have, I know, like you said, LPC, or like I said, LPC, so you're CSTAT, right?
Which is
okay.
Certified Sex Addiction Therapist.
Okay. Give me, and then the Master Addiction.
Just a MAT certification,
okay.
Master Addiction Therapist.
All right. And then anything else that I'm leaving out?
I've done tons of trainings.
Coach?
I'm a live coach. You know,
okay.
I really try to focus on the trainings that help families.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things, if we're just kind of skipping forward in my life and we're here,
Sure.
right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is I had to blow my life up too,
Right.
to get desperate enough to find help. So that was, something that I own wholeheartedly. When I was sitting in here talking to y'all earlier, I really resented the fact that I couldn't say I had, an addiction or alcoholism to blame all my mistakes on.
Right.
What I had was a ton of trauma.
Yeah.
And a ton of unawareness and ignorance, and not ignorance in the mean sense, but just without knowledge about what was going on. And until I had to deal with myself, I blew my life up too.
Yeah.
And
Well,
fortunately,
yeah, you can do that without becoming an addict.
Yes,
by the way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I tell, I think a lot of people that end up in Al-Anon rooms are blowing things up totally sober.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think sometimes can irritate, especially the more adult family members, is I will say that we are exactly the same, where the obsession about alcohol and drugs is occurring with the addict or the alcoholic or porn or whatever it is. Our obsession about their behavior, what they're doing, controlling the life, looking for safety and security is the exact same thing.
I always say that the addict's life revolves around the drugs, and the codependent's life revolves around the addict. You know, and it just makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense.
I wanted to point out too, though, for those of you, and it doesn't mean that even at early exposure it will change the trajectory of poor decisions. Because like I was exposed, I went to Alateen because like there's Alateen and Alatot.
By the way, Dusty, the mic's right here.
Alateen and Alatot, and those are for
There's Alatot. I didn't know that.
You don't see it as much. These days, because now we're navigating society a little bit differently, and really protecting our children more. And so if you want to send your children into unregulated groups and things like that, you got to really be cautious. But there are these groups that exist here in the United States and elsewhere where young people and young adults can go in if they have a parent or a family member that has an addiction, and they have their group, just like Al-Anon, but it's for younger folks. Like I went to Alateen camp, but as we know, that didn't really change the trajectory of my addiction choices.
Sure. Now, where
but it plants those seeds.
Where can people should they just Google that if they
Alateen.
want?
Yeah, there's websites for all of that.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, Al-Anon, Alateen both have websites.
Right. Okay. Well, and you were, I think you were saying something. I don't know if you had finished your point, but
I don't even remember what it was.
what was I talking about? Well, okay, so let's talk about the resource that you're offering right now. I mean, besides, being a life coach and stuff like that, you have a group called Recovery for the Rest of Us, and that's on Facebook and Instagram, correct?
And some YouTube videos.
The YouTube videos.
Yeah,
okay, so like,
yeah.
is it just kind of like, actually you kind of giving your opinion on what might help, or what is it?
So it's a couple of things.
Okay.
I started it a year and a half ago. Well, November of 2019, so going on 2 years. The page in itself has got almost 300,000 people following it. The group's got about 5,000 or 6,000 people in it right now.
Right.
And I started it because there's so many resources for the addict and the alcoholic, and where does the family go?
Sure.
One of the things that I think is super important is not only the healing of the person, right? Because for every addict, or I'm just going to use addict for the terminology's sake, there's 7 to 10 of us, right? That this little person is weaving destruction in and out of the life, right? And nobody's talking about that. Nobody's dealing with their destruction. But on the flip side of that, if we want long-term recovery, we have to learn how to love our loved one in a different way to enable the highest evolution of their recovery as well. And so we have to deal with our behaviors. And so I try to approach both those topics.
Okay.
I try to help the families understand where destruction might have been caused internally. And I use that word destruction with purpose. There's a lot of destruction that goes on as a result of this disease. And I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. There is abuse, there is name calling, there is, most of the girls present in my office that come in, and young men too, anxieties through the roof. They're experiencing panic attacks. What they're saying, parent is saying over here, does not align with what I'm seeing over here, and they begin to wonder, are they crazy?
Right.
You and I both know parent is doing what an addict does, lying, protecting, gaslighting,
Oh,
not
yeah.
in meanness, not
yeah.
in anything other than a sick person
Well,
who is in
there's
survival mode for
Yeah,
addiction.
there's definitely a lot of denial that goes on, with your family because, like, I mean, I know my mom was in full denial about my alcoholism. Oh, yeah, he'll be fine. It's like, yeah, about that.
And so we manage, both pieces of the coin. We really have to look at both. Maybe even to a degree, kind of unfairly. Of course, I'm a little bit of an advocate for the family side.
Sure.
I'm an advocate for recovery, period. But I feel like sometimes we have to carry the weight of how we interact with them while we learn to heal from sometimes the wounds that have been caused by the very person we're learning to interact with and from again.
Right.
And so I really work on teaching those things. So I just have a few videos up, but it's just kind of creating a base. What is addiction? What is codependency? What is enabling? What are boundaries? Things along those lines. But then in the group, we kind of talk about, okay, I'm in this situation. How do I handle it? Or oftentimes I'll self-disclose to kind of create conversation. One of the beautiful things I love about Al-Anon is I was able to identify my behavior through seeing it in another, right? Because I came in no different than anybody. I was manipulative.
You're like, oh, that sounds like me.
Yeah, I was manipulative.
That person has my story.
Yeah, I would tell you whatever story I needed to tell you to elicit whatever emotion I needed to elicit from you. I was a perpetual victim, and to a degree I was. But to a degree, a lot of it was self-created, and I didn't think that, because you would act this way too if you were surrounded by the people like I was. I never thought about the fact that I just keep going and getting in the swimming pool with them, right? You know, it was all their fault.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because I hear it all the time, and one of the points that I try to make is we use the term rock bottom a lot, and I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that everybody has to hit one, but for those of us who do, the codependent or the Al-Anon doesn't have to chase the addict down to the rock bottom with them. Sometimes they can let them go and experience that themselves, but oftentimes we've tied our wagon as a codependent or an Al-Anon to that addict or alcoholic.
Where you got to go down
chase
with them
down.
Yeah.
And both crash and burn, and it's absolutely not necessary.
Right. Hey, and I have a good question, I guess, for you, Amanda, because I've come across people, and a lot of people's thinking as far as Al-Anon goes is like, oh, okay, well, this person's an addict, right? So what does that have to do with me? And what would you say to somebody, because they're like, because I mean, I know from personal experience, somebody was hitting me up and going, well, I'm glad they're getting help, but, they want me to go to this Al-Anon meeting. And I'm like, okay, well, they say that to everybody, but it's, kind of more of a process thing. But what would you say to somebody that is what, Al-Anon curious or
someone asking, why do I need to go to these meetings?
Yeah,
I'm not the one with the problem.
Right.
Exactly.
And one, I would ask them what their relationship is with the person. So let's just say, this is my husband and he's in recovery, and I'm like, I'm not the one drinking. We'll be fine when he gets, sober. Well, he's sober and things aren't fine.
Sure.
So I will either approach them and say, why wouldn't you want to support this lifelong change in the person that you love, right? What fear do you feel is, what fear? Did I say that or did I say feel twice? Yeah, what fear do you feel, he's looking at you, is going to stop you from doing that? What's the worst that can happen? You go learn some information. I usually also try to tie it to something medical, right? If my kid was diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, I would be doing and learning everything I could to try to help them live the best life possible. I love how the book always goes back to, man, this disease is selfish. And my disease is the exact same disease as his or yours, just manifesting in a different way. It's the disease of self.
Right.
And so the truth is an Al-Anon, and I'm more worried about me than I am you. I can want you to be sober. I can want you to quit going down into the swimming pool. But the reality is, on some degree, is I need you to be that person because I don't know how to be okay by myself. I need you to be this way so I can be okay. And it all kind of boils down to me. Now, as an adult, as a child, that's a whole different reality. But as an adult, if he's drowning and he's not acting right, it's not working for me.
Right.
Right? If he's not doing what I need him to do, it's not working for me. because I don't know how to disconnect from him and go do what I need to do regardless of what he's doing.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
No,
or not,
I know it did.
but I don't
mean,
know
yeah,
why
it's
somebody
like,
wouldn't do
yeah,
it.
exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. But it's just funny that I still see people out there going,
All the
they
time.
have the problem. It's not me. Why do I need to do any work? You know what
from
I mean?
the addict's perspective, and it's just a lack of awareness. Going, I'm the one drinking every day. I'm the one shooting heroin in my arm. It's not hurting anybody else.
Right.
You know?
Well,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, yes, there
It's
are people
hurting
that
everybody.
maybe love and care for you, or hopefully love and care
Yeah.
for you. Yeah, definitely. Because, like, I mean, I know that it maybe was not affecting. I hid it pretty well from everybody else, but it was definitely affecting my wife. So, shout out Waverly. So for sticking with me through it. But I mean, it was definitely taxing, and she went to a couple of online meetings and found it helpful. And it's also good to find out that it's to find out that other people have stories like stories, and like you said, they just totally you go, oh well, that person's story is my story, so
That's why I always love the stories in the back of the big book, because they're older than dirt, but like,
right.
wow, I totally relate to that hobo that was jumping the trains,
Yeah, no, it's funny. That's
Yeah, they are older than dirt.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny that you bring that up, because then I'm like, but they have like, the whole anonymity step, and I'm, like press, radio, and TV. I'm like, well, y'all printed your own stories in a book, so I'm like, that's not very anonymous. It's just in an anonymous book.
Right.
But anyway, that's just, I'll probably get flamed for that.
Yeah.
But
Welcome to my world.
Whatevs. Hey, so I want to talk about like this. I've always been interested in the whole life coach aspect. So when you do that, like when you're a life coach, what is a life coach? What do you do? Like, I mean, like if I'm coming to you, you're just going to assess what's going on with me and...
Well, yeah, and I think it depends on what you're wanting to achieve.
Right.
I really, really am most passionate about working with families in a recovery type of way. I love seeing families kind of be re-empowered, regardless of what their loved one is doing. Right. That life is going to be good. So I would sit down, I would visit with people. I would say, hey, what are your goals? Oftentimes, and I think Dusty would say this, is when somebody walks into life coaching or therapy, what they think they want is a lot different than what is going to happen, right?
Right. Yeah.
They want to learn how to not be angry because, Dusty needs to change, and then I'll quit being angry, and we have to walk them through the process of awareness.
Real quick, what is the difference between like a life coach and therapy?
Well, I mean, in the state of Texas, even if I'm doing coaching, I still have to act in a therapeutic manner. That's an ethics, that's a law thing. So it's a fine line. Some people, it's somatic. Some people don't want to go to a therapist because nothing's wrong with me.
Sure.
But they'll go to
a
life coach.
That's cool.
That's funny. It's a little more. I'm a pretty direct therapist anyway. I feel like if people knew how to think the thoughts they needed to think, they wouldn't be sitting in my office. So sometimes I will tell them, which a lot of our books would say you're not supposed to do that. As a coach, I can certainly be directive.
Sure.
I'm very directive as a coach.
A little more so
than a therapeutic.
Okay,
yeah, I don't ask a lot of, how do you feel today?
Yeah,
I'm like, did you get your stuff done? Where are we at in the process? There's a lot of accountability.
Right. Do you find that a hard line to navigate sometimes?
No, because I am so boundaried with Al-Anon. I actually did something the other day, and I called him about it, where I kind of crossed my own boundary, and I'm like, what the hell? What is wrong with me? It's all these online meetings that I've been attending. I need some love in person. I'll even I popped into their meeting just to feel something with this group of people.
Right.
I think I was probably the only family member there, but we're all on the same boat, every single one of us. I mean, back in the day, they all went together. And I know I'm kind of going back to the program, but I mean, with life coaching, it's a custom design process for each and every person, therapeutically or in a coaching manner. I'm about to start some kind of group coaching on the recovery for the rest of us.
Okay.
We'll do some kind of family boundaries.
Are you going to have it like maybe like a Zoom meeting outside of, like
There'll be clients,
Uh-huh.
but it will all be done virtually. Yes. And
Okay.
so I will limit it to 10 per
Okay.
session. But we're going to do like a boundaries class up and coming. Because that's
Okay.
one thing that's really hard for family is, you got your cute little son looking at you saying, Mom, I promise that, I have a flat tire. I do. Can you just Venmo me $20? And in your mind, you know where that $20 is going, but the guilt, right? You don't want your son to be mad at you. I don't want him to yell. Sometimes he can be confrontational even.
Sure.
Right? So we're doing all these things that are so harmful kind of in the full spectrum of reality because we're not equipped to handle that type of manipulation, that type of guilt.
And Amanda, don't you find too that parents in recovery doesn't matter what they're recovering from, there's so much shame that they still feel, and they tend to be the biggest enablers.
Parents are the,
because I'm trying to make up for this. I wasn't a good dad.
Oh
or I
yeah,
wasn't a
like
good mom.
where their own shortcomings were, or what bothers them as a parent, where they think they dropped the ball. Huh?
Yeah. So I see a lack of boundaries based on that high level of shame that they feel from some of the choices that they made in their addiction or in their behaviors early on.
Right.
Absolutely.
I hear you. Well, cool, man. I love it. Hey, so also, Brett, real quick, I just wanted to let the kids know or let the people know that we have these shirts available real quick. If you'd like to purchase one, they are available at djkellyreverb.com/shop. Got the one that I'm wearing. I went to rehab, and all I got was my life back. And then we have the lovely, there is no magic pill for sobriety. If there was, we would all take too many. And then standard pink cloud issue. Those are all available on my DJ website. Also, let's see what else. Want to hit the sponsor again, summersky.us. 888-857-8857. And Cardinal House. I'm excited
Cardinal
to have
House.
those guys on cardinalhouserecovery.com, 918-998-4223. So anyway, back to I guess the recovery for the rest of us. Is there any, without getting too personal, is there anything like maybe a story you could tell us where you've seen a success where it's helped somebody without using names?
Oh, I could give you lots and lots of
Yeah,
stories about where it's helped people.
Let's hear some hope.
So I have a mom that had reached out, and
Okay.
she's never been around alcoholism or addiction, right? And those are the ones that always touch my heart the most because they are just going to get waylaid by this disease, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm an old
By the way,
hat
your
at
son,
this.
your son or daughter is a complete manipulator and is lying
Yeah.
to you, and you don't have a clue.
You don't have a clue.
Right.
And for the beginning stages, I would say for the first couple of years, everybody else is wrong. I think like how you would say your mom was even in denial, or your mom. You said that about your mom
Sure.
was denial.
Yeah, of course.
And so getting them to even acclimate to what the disease is, right? That it's not a choice. I think that that's one of the biggest things that I've been able to, like I was able to help her and show your daughter's not weak. There's nothing wrong with her. She is unable to make a choice for her own well-being right now. And it's just that simple. And as soon as we can remove all the moralizing from it, then we're able to really love and have some compassion as opposed to anger, disappointment. You screwed up your whole college career, you went to jail, you shamed the family, and all those things might be true, but we're going to have to flip the script because those things might continue to be true for the next 10 years if we're not careful.
Right.
And so I began to kind of work with her, just teaching her what the disease is. So many families don't know. And I've worked in treatment centers, and I've been around treatment centers my whole adult life. You might get some psychoeducation in there. Some of them do a better job of it than others. But I don't think the families genuinely understand the importance of that disease concept. First time it actually even became real for me, I was in an AA meeting at PPG in Dallas. They do I forgot what it's called, but they go and they're kind of doing the disease concept in the side room or something like that, a first step meeting or something, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
And this guy, and I'll never forget it, it was the first time I was able to not have hatred for my mother. He was talking about how he picked his daughter up and he wasn't going to drink, and it was a Sunday and all the liquor stores were closed, but long story short, he ends up and goes and buys like 5 bottles of NyQuil just to drink alcohol, and he's like,
delicious.
that's when he was like, I realized that I didn't have a choice. And in my brain, that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard, right?
Right.
But for this man to be standing up there saying that in a room full of strangers was so impactful, because I was like, well, if he didn't have a choice, then maybe that's true for my mom as well.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I was able to have compassion for the disease versus anger. So that's the first thing I try to do with families, and so is to give them compassion for their loved one.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of selfishness going on.
There's a lot of selfishness.
But also, there is like nobody starts out to to become an alcoholic or to become a heroin user. Nobody starts out to be an addict, or signs up for that. It just kind of happens,
That's how I look at it. I mean, I made choices to drink. I made choices to experiment with drugs, and along the way, somewhere, my brain decided it was going to be addicted.
Right.
And I didn't have a choice in that, because I didn't decide I wanted that, but it happened.
Right. Yeah. I have a really quick question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I was thinking, what is the barometer here? Like, what? Okay, so you have your standard alcoholic, and then what's the peak? Like heroin in the neck, like the spectrum. Like, is it like? Because like I always like, even me, going in and talking and being in recovery, going to meetings, and it doesn't matter what type of meeting it is. It's always like, I feel like, oh, I'm just an alcoholic, but this guy, man, he burnt it down, dude. But I mean, that's my little spectrum.
Well, I think that's
there.
our way of trying to minimize too. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I wasn't as bad as that guy.
Well,
I think that's what's going on.
I only
Yeah.
shot up in my arm. I didn't shoot up in
yeah.
my neck.
Right. Do I get some free therapy here?
But I think what you say, like, nobody makes these choices, right? But I think by the time we get here to talking to another person about it, there is so much anger, disappointment, resentment that's going on, that I think that it's helpful for the family to remember that is somebody you care about. Even if you hate them in the moment, you do care about them.
Right.
If there's couples, a lot of times there's been multiple affairs, and if it's been a sex addiction, then of course that's been going on. If it's a child, they might have most likely been mistreated by their parent to varying degrees.
Sure.
So I think we have to work on forgiveness to kind of begin that process of healing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things that we utilize in recovery, Dharma, is metta, or loving kindness, and to meditate on the idea that even those people engaged in really hateful behaviors, at the end of the day, there's something in them that they want to be happy, and we don't know why they're not and why they're acting out that way. And it's not our business to try to figure it out, but to want them to have that happiness, and we want it to have that happiness for ourselves too. So to meditate that loving kindness to others, but also to ourselves. And I think it ties into forgiveness really well.
One of the cool things that I enjoyed about Recovery Dharma is the meditation period, but the meditation, like a guided meditation, giving you some material to maybe meditate on. And I loved that one. One of the few times that I've been is forgiving the person, the offender, basically that person that made that trauma, or caused that trauma in your life, and forgiving that person, even if that person is yourself, And I mean, it was definitely like a little. You start seeing some people get like a little teary-eyed when you put it in that, that respect of like, oh my God,
People get caught up in forgiveness a lot because it's more of a release of bondage for you to not suffer anymore. It doesn't excuse what the other person does. It doesn't excuse their behavior, and it doesn't mean you have to reconnect with them, but it's more about disconnecting from that resentment and allowing yourself to heal and grow, as opposed to they get out of jail free card. It's not about that at all.
Even if I feel resentment for Rusty, he doesn't know. Dusty. He doesn't know I'm feeling.
Now I have a resentment.
Rusty, he doesn't know I'm feeling it. I'm the only one feeling it, right? And so, just that process. But, then walking a family through, let's set up some boundaries. Let's learn how to love your kid without supporting them. Without, this was a 35-year-old woman who was the daughter, who they were still paying their rent and their car payment. And, every time they were trying to set some boundaries, the mental health card would get played, or even the suicide card would get played, and that's a very tricky one for families. Like,
yeah. Like, how would you navigate that if somebody? I mean,
Well, I think if somebody threatens suicide, you call 911.
I agree.
Period.
I agree.
Period. Whether
Yeah.
you think they're one of my best friends who did end up killing himself later on in recovery. He threatened it all the time, and I have to live with this. One day he called. This is pre-recovery, This is wild, Amanda.
Sure. Okay.
And he called, and
there was a
drunk.
wild Amanda.
Oh, very wild.
That's a whole other show.
I had so much fun. Yes, I enjoyed my little wild times. But he would always threaten suicide. I understand that that's very common in addiction now. You get so low, you start feeling suicidal.
Of course.
But I didn't know that. He was just always running his mouth. And he called one night, and he's like, "I'm going to drive my car into the road." And I'm like, "Do it right now. Just drive into the bridge. Go ahead and do it." Like, I was just irritated with him because I thought he was just running his mouth. Now you're looking at me like that's horrible. Yes,
Right.
that's horrible, right?
Yes, you are a horrible person.
And I'm hoping he's forgiving me wherever he's at.
No.
But, and of course he didn't do it. He showed up he went missing after that. And I was terrified, right? Like, I was like, oh my God, these are the last words I've said to him. And then his mom texted me a couple of days later with like him in a straitjacket picture at jail, like being arrested, Had I known then what I know now,
yeah, of course,
I would have said, "Where are you at? And let's get you some help," right? We get resentful. We get tired of hearing their stuff. And if we're all operating from a place of illness,
right.
I can't tell you how many families are held hostage by those words.
Yeah.
If you do this, I'm going to kill myself. And what a terrible, I couldn't imagine losing one of my own sons.
Yeah. And it's funny that you use that word. I like that being held hostage, because that is what a lot of addicts and we do. We manipulate so we can hold that person hostage so we can keep the addiction going. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too, aside from utilizing law enforcement, most of the counties in our surrounding area have crisis lines that are operating 24 hours. And you don't have to be the person in crisis. If your loved one reaches out to your friend and they call and they say, "Hey, I'm going to put a bullet in my head," you can call that crisis line. And in places like Denton County, they'll go to that person where they're at, and they will utilize law enforcement as well for their own safety and get that person the help that they need.
I was going to say, I've actually utilized that and done that for a friend that was in Mineral Wells. I was like, okay, I got like a threatening text, and then I couldn't really get a hold of him on the phone. I go, well, here, I'm calling the suicide hotline, and they will come by and do a wellness check on
and
you.
The good thing about that is if they're suicidal, we're going to help them.
Yeah.
If they're holding you hostage, then they're only going to do that 1 or 2 times.
Because
if you
then
continue
they
to
know,
call them on your bluff.
They know you're real, and crap, the cops
the
are
popos are going to show up at my house
and knock down my door, because they will. Yeah.
And they absolutely will. And so it's a great way to set a boundary.
Yeah.
Is it uncomfortable? Do I have to talk to the family?
It's
going to feel horrible.
You'll be the dick or the
they're
asshole.
They're going to be mad.
Yeah.
They won't talk to you for a minute.
For sure.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you might just save their life.
Right.
And so we really have to relearn
and that's the thing.
to love them.
I just don't want to have that on my conscience. Like, that person threatened it, and they actually did it, and I could have done something about it.
I'd rather you cancel me or block me on Facebook than me have to attend your funeral.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Wow.
And so I think, when you asked, do I help people? We get to those points to be able to set those boundaries. Because if Dusty's my son and he's doing those things to me, I'm going to get resentful of him. I'm not going to want him to come around, And then if all these elements are removed, whether my son is using or not, I can still love him because I'm not supporting him, right? I'm not, having to take care of him.
Yeah,
and
just because you've set those boundaries doesn't mean you don't
love
him.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And even like when I go meet my sisters who are still in active addiction, and I love them with all my heart, and we're very boundaried, and I don't spend a lot of time with them. But when I do, I don't expect anything other than being there and being present with them in that moment, laughing, doing whatever we need to do to connect. I don't bring up anything else. I used to preach. I used to try to figure out how we were going to get them saved, and I realized I don't have that ability.
Yeah. You're not. You basically kind of teach them how to just be there and not try to fix them,
To
because
just love.
it's human nature to try to fix something.
Yeah.
It's it's
Especially
definitely
a parent.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I get messages all the time. Okay, my son or my daughter has this addiction. They're in really bad shape. I need to know what to do for them. And my first question is always, do they want any help right now? And more often than not, they don't. So I'm like, well, let's shift.
And that's a huge factor.
The focus on you. We need to help you now, because
to help you.
You're going to you need to heal from all of these experiences, and you're going to be able to have to navigate if things get worse or this doesn't end well. How are you going to cope with that? And how are you going to cope with this continuous trauma that you're
and
experiencing?
how are you not
going
to aid that party train? Yeah. No, I get it, man. I mean, that's really good stuff. Like, I mean, I think that it's not talked about enough about setting those boundaries and
what are the appropriate ones?
Yeah.
It's so individual.
yeah, for sure.
And then what happens when we've had these rigid boundaries with our active addict and they start to recover? Then how do we help? And then what do we do? Do we pay for sober living? Do we not? Do we pay for treatment again for a 40-year-old man or not? There's some treatment centers I've heard them say, put a second mortgage on your house.
Right.
The Al-Anon therapist to me is like, no. There's a homeward bound.
Yeah.
I have seen people get sober in a dumpster when they're ready to be done.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to empty ourselves.
Right,
for another adult person.
Financially ruin yourselves.
Yes, or now if it's your 15-year-old, that's a totally different conversation. Sure. And so it's so individualized, and I think that what you said is perfect, that what are we doing to educate you, the family member? What are we doing to let you know what the appropriate steps are, regardless of what they're doing? And it's so hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to watch the people you love destroy themselves in varying degrees, whether it's just drinking themselves to death or sticking needles in their neck, right?
Hey, you're using my spectrum now.
Yes.
See?
Yes. Or watching your 17-year-old son not be able to leave his room because he's addicted to pornography.
Right.
Right?
Ooh.
And that's a whole different version of hell and how you handle that and what boundaries you set. And it's, I think, plugging into programs where people have walked these roads before you becomes real important, because I wasn't equipped as a parent to deal with a 17-year-old holding himself up in a room. It's not my 17-year-old, but I'm just saying I wouldn't know what to do with that.
Right. He's in there. He's got his season pass to watching the Yankees. I've actually had people where they've had to go to the hospital because they're dehydrated, because they have not taken care of themselves. That's a whole different version of addiction. It's very real, right? Yeah.
Or if we begin to look at, is someone a heavy drinker and a narcissist or a true alcoholic? I feel like there's hope for the true alcoholic. I don't necessarily know that there's a lot of hope for the true narcissist. You might have a different opinion about that. But
speaking of some of my ex-girlfriends.
but you have
recovery. Speaking of narcissists,
jeez, Kelly.
And so, like, I think giving resources to people who, like I said, for every one addict or alcoholic, there's 7. There's a mom, a dad, a partner, a sibling, a child, an aunt, an uncle, an employer, a coworker, right?
Right.
That are all impacted by this. And one of the examples I use when I'm working with families is that the addiction's like an octopus, and it's got all these tentacles wrapped around us, and each tentacle, of course, is specific to their language, but this one's going to cause anxiety, and this one's going to cause pain, and this one might have some abuse attached to it, right? And slowly we're going to learn how to unhook those tentacles from our body.
The octopus analogy. I enjoy that.
And understand. And then the other part of that is not only is, let's just say, dad, the addict, that octopus is covering dad. So there's dad in there, but this octopus is just taken over, right?
Right.
And so one of the first
his mouth right on the ink ejector.
Yeah. And so, like, when I'm working with, younger people, one of the first things I have them do is I have them write down all the qualities of the octopus and all the qualities of their dad.
Yeah.
Right? Dad is loving. Dad used to read to me, because they're so focused on pain, rightfully so, because that's what the disease is pain. So it can only give pain. And they don't know what to do with all the pain, that I really try to remember that there's a human in there, right?
Yeah.
Especially with kids. When they're older, will they have an option to engage with their parent or not? Absolutely. But right now, they're in the same home, hostage
Yeah.
to their person's addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And let's give you some skills to live with
Right.
that addiction.
Sure.
And so those are some of the things that we do.
Yeah, and
Right.
educating parents and grandparents too, because you'll hear often, well, when I was growing up, A, B, and C, I'm like, well, that society doesn't exist anymore. Your child or your grandchild is living in a different society now. And so it's important that you understand what they're going through, that gaming addiction is real, porn addiction is real, eating disorders are real.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't click for them because they're like, well, I grew up in a different time. Absolutely, you did. So let's get into the present and understand what's going on in real time so you can help the person you love.
Sure.
Get rid of some of that old way of thinking. You
Right.
know, that served you well, maybe, perhaps, maybe it didn't, but that's not going to serve your child or your grandson.
Right.
Or even, your husband or wife.
Well, I love to go to the line in the big book where it talks about the guy, I can't remember it, but like there's a tornado, he comes up out of the cellar and he's like, look, Ma, the wind quit blowing, isn't that grand? Sometimes I feel like that the alcoholic or addict's like, I'm sober, my job is done. Right. And I think that that's the perfect expression of things are different. You know what I mean? We're not in a cellar anymore. We've got to keep going. What are we going to do? What are the skills?
Sure.
If I'm a mom and I've created damage and I created a lot of damage in my home being the codependent, right? I remember I was 6 months into recovery and I called my sponsor and I was like, oh my God, there was laughter in my home. Because my boys, I was a bully mom, right? I wasn't a hitter, but I would yell. I was a yeller.
Yeah.
And they're these little boys, which are 6'4" now, but they're these little boys, and their 5'10" mom is yelling at them. And I'm not yelling at them. I'm frustrated about everything that's going on over here. But they're the ones that are being impacted most by my frustration, right? They're the ones that are wearing the pain of the family because if dad's, out running around and drinking and mom's stressed out and trying to not only control home and manage everything, but trying to control dad, it's just a horrible thing all around. And I remember calling her and just heartbroken that I had allowed myself to get so far away, but I don't think that I ever knew any different anyway.
Right.
But two, realizing, okay, there's hope, right? That we sat there and we were playing a Monopoly that night and we were laughing, and it had been so long since something like that had happened. I still remember it vividly to this day. 13 years later,
I saw
right?
you going there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
for
it's
sure.
those moments that keep you going in recovery. Recovery's hard, I don't think, and for the family too. That first year, I mourned who I was.
Right.
I don't think that I realized how ugly I was to the addicts and alcoholics around me. My intentions were good, but I wasn't a good person. And I think the more pain that I received and created, the more that just came out of me as well. I was in so much pain that's all that
right. And I love how you put that like as in recovery, because I always point that out. It's a constant process, and it's not recovered. It's recovery. And I think that is something that you need to have in the forefront of your mind, that it's always going to be, you're not just going to get well and then move on with your life. And that goes with anything. It's a constant work in progress, and whatever work you put into that, you hopefully see some benefits.
Yeah, and I like how you touched on the children too. We were joking around about narcissism, and there's this joke about children being narcissists, right? And so children, they think the world revolves around them. If something good happens, it's because I did. I did something cool. Santa Claus comes, it's because I'm a great kid. Tooth Fairy comes, but also if mommy drinks, it's my fault. If daddy goes to jail, it's my fault. If mommy hits daddy, daddy hits mommy, it's my fault. And
if they hit me, then I'm a bad kid.
Yeah, I'm a bad kid. And so everything is internalized by the child, and that sets up a set of beliefs that will carry on throughout their adolescence and adult life. So that is a big, what I call contributor or influencer to the decision-making process that goes into every decision from that point on, whether it's the decision to drink or engage in sexual behavior or engage in violence. that those type of influences don't go away when they leave the house.
No.
Right.
Mine carried forward. I'm sorry.
Right. No. It's all good. I mean, we're just going to be wrapping up the show here, but I want to be sure that people can contact you as far as life recovery coach and or LPC. What is the best way to reach out to you and to get in touch with you if somebody's interested in soliciting your services?
So on Facebook or on Instagram, you can just search Recovery for the Rest of Us.
Okay.
And there is a page there that would lead you to the group. And then on Instagram, you can just send me messages there.
Okay.
If you're looking for therapeutic help, you can find Amanda Franklin LPC at Gmail would be a good email address.
Okay.
But it's a much needed topic.
Yeah, and I thank you for coming on and sharing that. And then, Dusty, I wanted to shine a little light on your Facebook page, which is SOBAR Basics.
SOBAR Basics is our Facebook page, and North DFW Recovery Dharma is another one that I like to promote. Also, I want to give a shout out to my team out at Texoma Community Center at Substance Use Disorder Treatment Program and my coaches.
And they can get free help there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If you don't have any resources, come see us.
Uh-huh.
Cook County, Fannin County, Grayson County. You can find out more about what we do.
All those places where tornadoes are?
Absolutely. At texomacc.org, and we have a recovery coaching program out there. We have medicated assisted treatment, Suboxone program out there. We have an outpatient program out there. We have a specialized women's program. We have Absolute. We have adolescent. We do not have Absolute. We have an adolescent substance use treatment program as well as many other programs. So, and you can reach out to me there at dburrows@texomacc.org or dustyleeburrows@yahoo.com.
And another thing that maybe people might be interested in, another part of my professional role is I will do assessments and then point families in the right direction for not only their addict or their loved one, but more the mental health side, right? Like my stuff presented later on in life and sometimes still as an eating disorder, right? And so what do we do with our kid that has an eating disorder, but we're not going to talk about what's going on over here? Or my kid is majorly depressed. Where do we find appropriate resources? So I do screening and placement around that.
A resource broker.
I absolutely, when you said a resource broker, that's exactly what I do.
That's
too.
the one thing, now that I am an RSPS, which is Recovery Support Peer Specialist.
Congratulations, Kelly.
Right.
At Chapter House, right?
Well, I mean, I do recovery tech work, but I actually did the certificate and the training and the peer. What is your
peer specialist supervisor?
There you go.
Are you a peer specialist supervisor?
Yeah, so he
too?
actually supervised my hours, and now I have a certificate that I will hang right above my toilet. No, I'm just kidding. But hey, real quick, if y'all aren't on the YouTube channel, please go there. It's www.thispinkcloud.com. That's going to take you to the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe because I'm going to have unique content on there that's only on that channel. And I actually was talking, I might just start broadcasting live on YouTube. And then the Facebook Live and the Instagram is just going to be social page to direct them to YouTube. So I don't know, something I'm thinking about. But so go sign up.
Check it out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can't thank you enough for making time. I
Thank
know you have 9 million jobs and 9 million things to do. And Dusty, I know you are the social butterfly of sobriety, or one of them.
One of the many. Yeah, we have a lot of recovery rock stars, especially here in the DFW area. Shout out to Skate Straight.
Right.
Shout out to the Phoenix.
Oh, yeah. These are all good resources, people, so be sure and check them out. And, if you need help, just reach out to us. Also, I was going to throw this idea out there. If you have any topics you want us to discuss on the show, do me a favor and send in like a video message. Just video yourself on the phone asking the question. We'll play it on the air and address your question, and you'll be a little internet famous.
Oh, yeah, one more thing, Kelly. We're having an event on the 29th. It's on a Sunday from 12 to 3, Grapevine Lake.
Okay.
You can get the details on that on the Phoenix page or the SOBAR Basics page. So anybody in recovery, sober curious, elective sobriety, not quite sure,
What
come
is
on
elective?
elective sobriety, that's when you didn't really have any issues with it. You're
Oh,
just
you just wanted to be
you're just
sober.
being sober because it's a
Oh,
healthy life
okay.
choice.
Okay,
You know, like cutting out gluten.
Is there
You know?
Yes.
and then court order sobriety?
Yeah, there's court ordered sobriety as well. So
right.
all of that, come on out and hang out with us at the lake. Usually there's about 75 people.
Yeah, no, it's a good time. It's a good time.
we'll
and
feed
hot
ya.
dogs. And
Yeah.
Good times.
Kayaks,
good people. Yeah. Right.
Mountain bikes, volleyball,
Right.
music,
Yeah, exactly.
community, or sangha, as we call it.
There you go. Hey, and anybody you want to shout out to real quick?
I just appreciate being here. You
Okay.
know? Yeah. You know, if you are looking more on the therapeutic side, the practice that I'm at is Living Perspective in Flower Mound, and there's a great staff there.
Okay.
Other than that,
All right. Well, thanks a
Yeah.
lot for coming on, guys. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Amanda.
it.
thank you.
Yeah, and let's see. Next week, I actually have the 2 recovery coaches from Nexus, which is a recovery facility that is strictly for women, and it's free of charge.
Yeah, fantastic
FOC,
resource.
so-
If you need treatment and you're a female, Nexus is a great spot to go, and you can get in there free of charge. It's state funded, homeward bound as well. That's a big question I have. I don't have insurance, I don't have money, but
Right.
I need help.
Sure.
Those are 2 really good places to start.
Cool. Well, Brett, if you want to play us out, bud. Hey, thanks for coming on again. And then, as I like to say, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Recovery Support Peer Specialist.